Agile Austin Leader Special Interest Group, December 6th, our 15-year anniversary also. We are part of the larger Agile Austin umbrella. We connect, we collaborate, we grow, all things Agile. Thanks for coming out. Okay, and I'm just going to go through a few slides here just to give you some context and allow me to introduce myself. Max Akesi. I'm the founder and I facilitated this Leader SIG for 15 years now, since 2009. And not to brag or anything, but is the longest continuous SIG there is. Ben might have started one.
Ned, a wild Ned appears.
Ned, I just made up some facts on the spot, okay? Excuse me. So, yes, I also happen to be the Agile Austin president, and I just started my own company this year. I'm a founder of Carpe Diem Technology Services. So ping me offline if you want to hear more about that. But what we do at the Leader SIG, we meet every first Friday of the month, and we talk about leading Agile transformations. In whatever shape, form, discussion that might be, that's what we do here, okay? We have a guest speaker and we just go at it. Oh my goodness, we have CA. CA is our annual conference that we've been doing for 12 years. And guess what? We're doing it again. We're doing it. We just have so much fun that we're going to do it again. And I'm going to put the link here in the chat. CA 2025 is happening Thursday, April 24th. We're selling tickets already. Sponsors are already joining. We have title sponsors, StarPath Consulting, and we're taking applications for speakers. So the deadline's gonna be like December 15th. We might extend it or not, but please, if anybody's interested, go to the link that I put in the chat. CA 2025. It's just awesome to still hang out in person from time to time. Okay. Board, we've got Ben here on the call to the speaker. He's the CTO. We've got Sid also here in the call, VP, CO. Chase is joined also, and he is CPO on the product side, and I am the president, and Jenny is our treasurer. We are 501c nonprofit, and we as a board, we just do a lot of stuff and have fun while doing it. We just had our holiday party this week. It was just so much fun to hang out with people in person and celebrate. And we have sponsors, we have members, we have 150 plus paying members. If you'd like to hear more about membership or check it out on the sponsorship side, just go to our site. I put the link in there, and there are a lot of cool, great things that we're bringing out for our members, like scholarships and more in-person events, etc., etc. Sponsors, shout out to our sponsors, because without our sponsors, a lot could not happen. So Agile Velocity has been our sponsor for 12 years. They sponsor CA also. Shout out to them. Resumex is a new sponsor, and glad to have them on as gold sponsors. And Aaron Randall with Ad Meliora is there too as a silver sponsor. If you want to know more about them, guess what? I'll put it in the chat too. Okay, so that you've got all that information. Ned, thank you. Like, membership is $35 a year, and it is a bargain. Folks, as an organization, we have like anywhere between 5 to 10 meetups a month. And I tell people, if just great speakers, great content. We post everything on our channel, our YouTube channel. But if you ever want to hear about like an Agile coaching SIG, Agile at Scale, the book club, the Leader SIG, our new product and AI SIG, subscribe. Just subscribe so you get the notifications. And I will put the subscription here in the Slack channel. the page to it, and just go and subscribe, and you'll get all of the information. It's just all out there. It's free, and it's just awesome to always share this quality content with folks. So volunteer, we are always looking for volunteers. We're looking for a director of sponsorship right now, but in general, we're always happy to have volunteers help us out. We are volunteer-based group as an organization. You know, like we do great stuff, but it's all because we have the volunteers to do it, like at the end of the day. Awesome. Today is going to be a blast, not only because it's our 15-year anniversary, and we'll be talking about stuff like timeline-wise from the start to the present to the future. And it's just great to have Ben and Matt here as speakers. They'll talk more about themselves and introduce themselves. I just wanted to say a quick thing. Being here from the start and founding this, being here now, it's incredible to see what a journey has been. I remember the first SIGs that we did back in 2009, and we were telling people about story points. You need to understand how to use story points. We tell people about, oh, what's Scrum? And we do a session on that. And we do all it was just, nobody knew what was going on. And we were just informing folks about that, thinking that that was what leading transformation was about. Fast forward to now, and it's just awesome to see that we talk about leveraging and having to use an agile mindset to deliver customer value. And we focus on that. Like we're not talking about process frameworks anymore. If you know Scrum or this or that, like we've just gotten to the point of team empowerment and psychological safety and a lot of these things, because that is what we need to lead agile transformations. All right. So anyway, I always get emotional when I talk about this. Oh my God. Happy New Year. We're not going to be here in January. All right. We'll be back in February, and stay informed and posted. Folks, it's tradition now. We might not be able to meet in person, but we can do a Brady Bunch picture together. So if you're having lunch, take a break. You see, Ned, you used to be in Austin. You're up there in Minneapolis somewhere, but you're still here with us, and we can take a picture together. Awesome. Take a second to turn on your camera, folks. And then I am going to take a screenshot. Where is my... Yes. Okay, folks. Thumbs up or whatever you want to do. Okay. Peace out in 3, 2, 1. Aha, I think I got it. I think I got it. There you go. All right. So let me see how it looks. Are we good? Yes. Yes, we're good. There you go. So here's what we have. Yeah. Thank you very much for signing. Ned was truly excited. Nobody. Thank you. And yeah, peace out. Jenny joined. Yes. All right. And Chase, like we didn't see you, but that's okay. All right. We forgive you. Let's go on, folks. Let's go on. So thank you. I'll be posting that on the meetup. Also, today's agenda. We're going to have the panelists do like an introduction. We're going to get into it. Anybody that has comments, questions, or whatever you want, you can actually chat and everything, and we'll try to bring your comments in as much as possible. Highly interactive session over 3 or 4 topics, okay? And then at the end, we'll wrap it up with a call to action, okay? Because it's always good to hear what people feel, like the panelists, about here's what, I've learned in 2 decades of trying this out, and boom, okay? So let's get straight into it. And no, let's not go backwards, let's go forwards. The state of Agile, 23 years on. We'll start with Ben Rogers doing an introduction and then of himself, and then we'll go on to Matt. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for that, Max. Appreciate it. So, yeah, Ben Rogers, been a part of the Agile Austin community since think the first open space conference that we had in 2008. So Matt predates me by a little bit. I am jealous of him beating me there, but I do predate Max, so I'm very proud of that. Did do the QA SIG with Colin Turner for many years, and then have been the co-lead of the Agile at Scale SIG for 4 years now. Leland Newsom started that one back in 2016. And I am, as Max mentioned, I'm on the board now. So I am the counterpoint to Max's light. I am the dark. And so we have great conversations and are able to kind of meet in the middle. And so, yes, it's been a fantastic journey so far and look forward to continuing it. So I will ping it over to Matt.
Thanks, Ben. Wow, look at that young guy. This 10-year-old picture now. Um, yeah, I've considered myself for a long time an agile pragmatist. Been sort of either building software or essentially going from a software engineer to a systems engineer of people, products, technology, and process, and getting them to all work together to deliver customer value while those people in that system are building their careers, learning and building their and helping build others, right? So this sort of like big flywheel of how do we do it all and get everything all at once. It always started for me with building things of value, building things of purpose that in general at scale, it's like, well, customers, right, want to use. And, how do you assemble folks to be able to deliver that value with a minimum amount of waste and the maximum amount of great learning? And so Agile always occurred to me as, just something really interesting from the time in maybe college. I read Rapid Development by McConnell and, all these other kinds of books along the way that were, you know, Deming and all this kind of stuff that was learned and relearned in the 60s, Shewart going back, Ishikawa, all these sort of like quality systems. So anyway, there's a bunch there. I'm insanely curious and really enjoy all the SIGs. Have been in various software engineering leadership positions and product and engineering and maybe sometimes support too for about 25 years. I mean, I started out as a software engineer. So um, in Austin, I was there for about 15 years. Some of y'all might know companies like Motive and a few other sort of the big storied Austin companies, and then moved to Seattle for Amazon Web Services and sort of back in the smaller company space now. So I was president of Agile Austin for 4 years. Just amazing. This great organization built by Scott Killen and others after the Agile Project APLN, the original genesis of Agile Austin, and just was so excited to be part of this community. And I was so excited at my first meeting. I asked Scott, I just told him, I'm really interested in doing more and coming to more meetings. And he just turned around and said, well, Matt, how'd you like to run for president? And so that's my Scott Killen impression. He's an amazing, amazing guy who retired last year. So it's been just such a joy and honor to be part of this community that a couple of years ago, or maybe it was last year, I said, hey, Max, hey, Ben, I got this idea for a new special interest group. And then we started doing the conference virtually. So anyway, it's just been such an amazing opportunity to grow and learn with all of these great community members. And I'm just so happy to be here today. So thanks, Max.
Woo! And it's great to have you two here, Ben and Matt, because when we truly think of like having to take a look back, it's just good to have people that have been plugged in from the start, in the middle, and still here now. So let's do it. Let's do it. Oh my goodness. So we want everybody to participate in this. So we're going to take advantage of Zoom's poll functionality. So I've got a poll here, which is going to be around your feedback on the Agile current state. And sorry, some of the choices were made by Ben. They're a little bit dramatic, but we're just having fun here. So you should be able to see a poll, right? That just popped up for you. What is Agile's current state? Alive, blah, 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 blah. Sniffles, seem to have caught a cold, but still is there. Long-term chronic condition, doesn't seem to have an end in sight. Assisted living, oh my goodness, it's getting more dramatic. And hospice care. And of course, we didn't want to end a hospice care. We just had to go one further, and inevitable death. Now, yeah, it's a bit dramatic because some of us that have been in the Agile space have seen things evolve from where it was at a very genuine state. And we're not going to bring in conversations of the Agile industrial complex and the misunderstanding of Agile and a lot of terms, okay? But I just think it's good to get the feedback out there. All right, we're going to end the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and people are still responding. 2.5, 1.5, 1, and it's done. End poll, and let's share results. Okay, you should be able to see the results, right? And whoa,
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
It's good to know that we don't have anybody that said is dead, thank you. But we have the majority of people are concerned about the conditions of it, okay? But it's good to see that it's a little bit on the higher side of saying, hey, there are problems, but we can make it through, okay? No hospice, no death. Thank you. Can we continue with this can-do spirit today and talk about, let's dive into our first topic. As I said, I mean, our panelists are Ben and Matt, but you want to chat some feedback, you have a question, whatever, put it in the chat, okay? So we're going to talk about from 2009 to 2024, okay? And I'll just set it down and saying, we started off with the manifesto, which came out in 2001, but things ramped up a lot more in the mid-2000s, okay? And we're talking about the 15 years, ever since there, because the 15-year anniversary of the Leader SIG. And I got a bit dramatic and put all these like process frameworks that have come out in the last 15 years, which like is overwhelming. But to Ben and Matt, what has changed from your experience in Agile since 2009 to 2004? And what does Agile or agility mean to you now? So please share.
After you, Matt.
Oh, I was going to say after you, man. I thought a lot about this question, and first sort of contextually, like there's a bunch of things in there. If you go back to XP and TDD and all these kinds of things that were predated, at least I shouldn't say predated the manifesto because they were about in the same time, maybe a couple of years before. Even some of the concepts that I mentioned in rapid development by McConnell. The thing that's interesting to me when I think about Agile, like to me, in one word, Agile hasn't changed since 2009 because Agile to me is just responding to change. Like that's all really Agile means to me. Sort of the next level that it means to me is ways that we can work together to deliver customer value. So customer collaboration over contract negotiation. And the manifesto is really, as most manifestos are, a response to something that's happening that we don't like. Whether it's Martin Luther, slamming a thing up on the Church of England saying, I don't need you to talk to God. I can just talk to God on my own. It's like, it's a rejection of something that comes before. And I think if you look at what was going on in the late 90s and early 2000s, you have the Standish Report and all these projects fail, Big Bang, waterfall, whatever you want to call it. Things were slow. Like it in building things of size was like, it was insanely hard because you got sort of software became really big from a handful of experts in small things, probably back in the 60s and 70s, to like now we've got, and yes, there are big projects like, Apollo and all those kinds of things, but you started having business start like doing all these things and it was not really effective. You were seeing a lot of failure. And the focus wasn't on learning. The focus was like scaling and getting big and sort of like this mismatch impedance between what software building software and the people that are sort of funding it is. What to me, the thing that changes over these 15 years is that so much of the things that we do to build software has gotten faster. Like, think about infrastructure as code. Think about all of these things, code review systems. Think about GitHub. All of this stuff used to be a big lift to even do. It was all sort of manual, but now you have tools that embed a lot of these kinds of things. I was in a meeting, I'm now acquired once again by a very large company, 3,500 people, and marketing is talking about sprints, right? Like the nomenclature, how they work, and how people like their mindset has really been, let's do things smaller increments to go off and deliver customer value. And we saw a couple of bumps along the way, whether it was Y2K and then 2004 and 5, 2008 and 9 financial crisis. And then we were on this. So you started seeing things get more efficient and effective. And then we were on this big tear for the past, 12 years with zero interest rate. And so you could sort of do big things again. But despite doing big things again over the past 12 years, you kept having by default, people would work in these small teams. Like sort of Max was saying, I got to go off and convince people to like adopt these frameworks. It's like in many cases, it's like you don't have to do that convincing anymore. What I think what it means to me then, and we're starting to see this with AI, and you'll get these claims of like software engineering or software development is dead and all that kind of stuff, which has been proclaimed throughout my entirety of my career through various tools and techniques. But what I think has always been true is you need to build code in and of itself is not valuable, right? Like the least code you can do to solve the problem is better, right? Because code is not value. It's like the solution to the customer problems. So you start seeing that, we were talking about, I don't know if it's shift left, maybe it's shift even lefter to the customer side where you're like, let's define what problems customers have. Don't tell me what the requirements are, the user stories, that's all fine. But really, agility to me now, there's this common context that everybody is starting to talk more and more about. Let's get the product side right. In other words, let's get the define the problem, fall in love with the problem, and then do the solution as opposed to solution before problem. And that's, I think, the area that we're starting to see the most kind of exploration and growth. And so to me, that's what agility would mean to me in 2024 is really sussing out and helping define problems before you solve them. Because the solving, we've all realized, is like, it's necessary, but not the value. Like the code is not the value. It's like brilliantly solving the problem. So I'll hand it over to Ben.
No, absolutely, Matt. Thank you. And if I may just, before we transition to Ben, something that Matt really, as you talked about, an experience came up in my mind about what has changed is that I remember back in the mid 2000s, I was a project manager and I would work and create Microsoft project plans that were over 300 lines. They were over 300, and it was so painful and it was ridiculous. And something would change because someone was going on vacation 8 months from now, and I would have to update the project timeline and and it was such a waste of, and it felt like such a waste of time. But I had to do it because it was what was expected. But when we started to go down the path of Scrum and Agile, there was just an expectation that you would work in an incremental and like an iterative way. You don't have to have a Microsoft. I've not seen a Microsoft project plan in years now, in years, right? I've not seen anything in detail, like line by line for 8 months of work in years, in over a decade. And that has changed. And I'm really happy because I had tried to fight it until Agile and Scrum came about. And I'm not the biggest fan of process frameworks, but that changed. And I'm so grateful for that. But going on to Ben, because I'm not on the panel, I'm just the moderator, so I shouldn't talk that much. Ben.
Oh, Max, let me show you the Google Sheet I saw just the other day. So let's bring some negative into this conversation. Agile to me has always been, since 2009, even before that, has always been about communication, and especially in the software world, and to a larger extent, organizations composed of people using different communication patterns. Myself as an introvert, I can definitely identify with the notion of I want to put my head down and get my work done in my it used to be office. When I started, people had their own offices and they could shut their doors and things like that. And in today's world, if you're back in an office environment, um, you're probably working in a very open environment, which to some people is very collaborative, to others very noisy and unnecessary, and things like that. And so I think things have definitely shifted in the direction of openness and collaboration, and the want and the need for humans to communicate with each other, even when it can be relatively exhausting, because especially in the software space with lots of introverts, it is difficult to communicate. So to me, it has always been something, and especially in 2009, it was forming those communication channels. I remember that open space conference I went to in 2008. It was eye-opening, because if you've never been to an open space conference, I would highly recommend it as an experience, because you get to put up a bunch of topics on the wall. Everybody's invited to participate. And then the ones that are chosen and selected just become actual sessions. And so those sessions are then led by the participants of the conference. And it's just not someone, just like right now, like me speaking to you and speaking at you. It's a collaborative and open session. And so I think that it had obviously been done before in different incarnations, but the really agile promoting things like that back in the late 2000s, I think was great. What happened to it over the last 15 years, and what agility probably means now in 2024, it's just like anything else. It becomes commercialized and in some ways appropriated. And we hate to use the term agile industrial complex, but there is something out there where the monetization of the processes and the communication channels has kind of become, in many cases, a kind of a rote mechanism for companies to try and inspect, adapt, and become better at what they do. And I don't look at companies as being bad for trying to improve through these mechanisms, but especially when you talk about, not trying to cast aspersions on the consulting industry or anything like that, but there are a lot of cases where, and this is not just an agile, but consulting in general, where you come in, and I've been this myself, and you try to be a change agent, and sometimes that doesn't go so well. So I think we've seen the co-opting of a lot of that, whereas the spirit of that open communication and collaboration from the late 2000s is not necessarily there like it once was. So I think in 2024, we're at a crossroads, and will continue to be so, where agile communities like ours in Agile Austin, where we've tried to do our best, the pandemic especially has unfortunately had us shrink. And so I'd certainly love us to see have a reboot in 2025 and beyond, where we can get back to those seeds of communication over to people over process, I guess, is the
Look, I've got it here on the slide.
Yeah.
Individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Imagine,
Exactly.
it's like, it's all there in the manifesto, and we made it complicated and got off track and whatnot. But no, Ben, thank you for sharing, because I think it's just, you bring a dose of reality to it. And, it's not calling out certain consulting firms or whatever the case may be, agile industrial companies. It's just be aware that that's a reality that has happened, right? And how can we cope with this reality and still leverage an agility and an agile mindset that, we had from the very start and let that shine further. Okay, folks. And is there any chat? If you want to make a comment or whatever, put up your virtual hand or do something. We're highly interactive here, okay? And stuff. So I don't think there was any question in the chat or whatever. So what I really like about this is that we learn from our mistakes. We learn from our failures, right? A lot of people say, don't be afraid to fail. Well, if you don't learn from your failures, yeah, you should be afraid to fail, okay? But if we learn from our failures and pitfalls, there's a lot to learn. So Ben and Matt, like, start to think about how to share with us some pitfalls that you made and how that made you learn something from it, right? Oh, I've got a really good one, but I'll wait for y'all to go through yours first. Matt started the last time, so this time we're gonna swap around and have Ben start.
Actually, I'm kind of blanking right now, so Matt saved me.
And I can jump in if need be.
So I think here's a mistake that I made, and I'll name names because it's mostly mine. Seeking, it's always when helping to make, a lot of my career has been, I mean, probably most of ours, like helping transform things, right? Like, and I think mostly everybody is, it's like building something new. There's going to be some level of transformation in sort of all aspects. If you're building code, if you're building applications, like why would you build it again if it already exists? Code is essentially free. So there you get into the systems kind of level, and you can make a lot of assumptions, and coming into a place, you can go in and you can not understand, and you can maintain a position and not understand who the stakeholders are and who the people are that are there. And that's very important if you care about those people, like empathy. It's like individuals you were talking about. It's so important to understand where people are and where they want to go as human beings. And I will tell you that I came into Amazon Web Services, and I'd heard that it was the world's largest. I've never intentionally joined a company that big. And I joined because a lot of what I'd read, I've been a fanboy since 96 or 97. I still have my first book from 1997 behind me over here. The I'd read so much about how Jeff Wilke, not Bezos, like everybody knows, had brought Lean Six Sigma and a lot of these kinds of things. And a lot of the practices that they had, there are mechanisms that we call them in Amazon, like COE, correction of error, were just the Ishikawa quality circle. And I made a bunch of assumptions coming in 2017. And I was like, clearly, this is the company that is like, they might not call it Agile because that Amazon is sort of like, we're willing to be misunderstood for long periods of time, peculiar culture kind of stuff. And I came in and I'm whatever senior dev manager or something like that. And I look at the way that work is being done. And what I notice is you've got a team of, the two pizza team, 7 plus or minus 2. And everybody has their own project. These are all mostly young engineers, right? Like people, because that's what Amazon hires, like people like right out of school, right? Like, so cool, lots of energy and stuff, and very good too. But the way that they structured the work was like you had 10 people on the team or 8 people on the team, and you had 8 projects running. And I was like, the first thing I go to, I'm like, oh my goodness, what will happen if you guys go on vacation? Okay, well, we don't go on vacation to Amazon. Okay, well, what happens if like something
We work
interrupts
on vacation.
all those kinds of things? And I recall just saying, and I had a very senior guy that had joined a little bit before I did, a principal engineer, very, very smart guy. And both he and I were sort of the old guys in the room. And we're like, why would you do it like this? Why would you run the way you do things like that? And there was a young woman who like just stood up to me and said, Matt, this is the way we do it. This is the way we do it. And I started like saying, but person names who I won't name, like if but that means that you'd have to work all the time, and then the total throughput of the system is going to go down because, like, instead of people swarming together working on things, like, Matt, that's not how we do it here. She was sort of yelling at me, and I sort of took a step back, and I was like, I really need to understand the system that's at play here. And when I started asking these powerful questions, what I learned was new people, especially college hires coming into Amazon, they've got about 18 months to go get a promotion. If they don't get a promotion, then they're not going to be at Amazon anymore. And so this all of a sudden like turned around. I'm like, oh, they need their project. If they don't have their project and get it done, they're not going to have evidence that they are due for a promotion. And so then I realized that I had not sought to understand. I had asserted like a truth that wasn't shouldn't have been there. But then I worked with the team to figure out it's like, well, okay, cool. We have these different levels here, and you're at this level, you're at this level. Can you have like one person on a project who's like doing the more senior stuff, and then you're guiding the other person? Because I looked at the leveling guides and I was like, part of your promotion process is to like help guide a new person. And it's like, then we actually have two people on it. And then I was like, okay, cool. Now instead of having 10 separate projects, I've got five. Okay, that's a win, right? And then people started learning and growing and like, and then they got promoted, and then like they weren't getting on performance improvement plans just because they hadn't gotten a promotion kind of thing. And so despite the fact that Amazon's culture, I would say, is largely agile, and many of the things that are there come from Lean Six Sigma and things like that, I realized how wrong my initial impression and insistence was, and that's the kind of people that Amazon hired, was like young women that were like willing to tell a person that was like 3 or 4 levels above them to go to hell. Like, and in many ways I was there for that. Like I was like, that's cool. I love that. I really do love that. So that's a mistake I made. I will tell you, it was not the first time I made that kind of mistake. So each time I have, I've learned a lot more.
Matt, spot on how every time we're, especially when you want to lead a transformation, what this SIG is all about, having to lead transformation, you have to meet people where they're at. You have to understand where people are at. Oh, there's so many experiences that I've had where I had certain expectations, knowledge, but I've been told by the leaders that this is where we're at. Okay, so I stepped into teams and I'm like, I discovered after weeks of speaking to them that they just were not on my same page, right? And I should have taken a step back and understood where things were at, right? Ben,
Yes.
you have a quick one before we go to the next slide?
Yeah, real quick. So, more in the lean space, but if I had to actually Google this because I hadn't used it in ages, but I actually tried to introduce A3 reports at one company I worked with. So, just Google it yourself if you've never seen it before. There's some useful concepts, but I was trying to essentially copy and paste all of the concepts into a report for this company and slaved over it. I can't even remember how long it took me, but it was, ironically enough, it was a lot of wasted effort because it just didn't apply to the context of what the company was working on. And so I think the lesson learned there for me more than anything else was a lot of the teachings that Agile, Lean, various different methodologies provide are great, but if they don't work in a specific, you can try little bits and pieces of it as experiments, but do it as rapidly as possible and don't try and, completely fit something that just isn't going to be something that's going to be useful for a particular environment, the square peg, round hole problem. And so that's one major thing I saw. And just real quick, Max, also deeper learnings I think are really key and essential for businesses. So shallowly looking at metrics, especially when metrics are misused and manipulated, has been also a real bugaboo that I've learned the hard way is not necessarily the best. So in other words, incident analysis space is kind of ripe for disruption in terms of being able to go deeper into what's happening in any given particular problem that your organization is facing. So I won't go into details because I think, as Max was saying, we need to move on. But when faced and presented with a problem, I know it's paradoxical to the first thing I just said, but taking some time to go and look deeply into organizational challenges rather than taking a look at story point metrics or, other stuff is, I think, a super useful and key thing that I've learned over the course of my career.
Like Ben, and just that last phrase you said, like we get so stuck in this process frameworks of you've got to create stories, you've got to prioritize your backlog, and this is, I'm not saying it's bad, it's all good stuff. The time where I helped the team add most value was when I took the team over to a different building where the end user, who was a sales rep using their application, was seated, and we just shadowed that person for half an hour. There were no stories, there were no epics, there was nothing, but they saw how their software was truly being used, and they were like, we can fix 70% of the problems they're having in a sprint. But we never knew about this. For months, we never knew. Nothing about process framework, just looking at a problem and solving it firsthand. Oh my goodness. Wait, there's some comments in the chat. Hold on. Which one is it? Matt has replied to George's own. George, are we good, or do you have something? Do you want a promotion in 2 years, George? Is that what your question is about? Hey, is it? Because we can have a whole session on how are people compensated and the issues.
Yes, I've given that one. It's the deeper, darker secrets of agile compensation. I still have that deck.
That is
really interesting.
That
I
is
don't know. I mean, that's kind of like a interesting question to me. Like in different spaces and software, there seems to be different perspectives of what things are. For example, if you're in web, if you're got 7 years experience, you're a massively senior developer. But if you're in telecom, well, maybe you're just intermediate. I don't know. Like it's interesting to me. I don't have any answers for that. If you have some magic about how to inspire people by promoting them in a sustainable way, then maybe that's something I could benefit from reading.
I do. And I have a new one, which is called the contribution review, which I've been using for the past 10 years or so, as opposed to performance review. That'll be another presentation for another day.
But that is needed because how people get compensated determines a lot of things. A lot of things, right? And I learned that the hard way. Sid, do you want to share something, or you just wanted to share information in the chat, or?
To answer the question, I don't want to interrupt the flow of the panel. I was just putting in what I thought was a common pitfall, since that's what the topic was about. So I think it's fine. Yeah, we have lots to get to, don't we? Yeah.
It's just fine to just read. Okay, I trust you. And Ned also shared in there, you inspire people by having to, like, you offer them a chance to fulfill their best selves. Like, if you can just let people be themselves when they come.
You actually have to find out what motivates them. There is no one size fits all. Right. And that's, I mean, this is partially in response to George's observation. And it's kind of a theme of this discussion. If you're not talking to the people who have the need and understanding what their needs are, you're not going to fulfill them. And that applies to the people who are working on the project, people within your teams, as well as to your customers.
Yeah. And
what motivates me may not be what motivates you.
Ned, spot on. But you have to also create a psychologically safe environment when people share what their needs are and everything. Maybe those needs are not aligned with the team's needs or whatever the case may be. But then you gradually find out where the best fit for that person could be, on the team, off the team, or whatever. But that is a whole other thing and conversation. Oh, I love this. I love this. Now, we might have to cut out a topic like afterwards, but let's talk about agility versus agile. Okay, this is a very key one, but we're going to try to keep it very concise Okay, and 2 minutes or so. Ben, Matt, whomever whomever wants to jump in, do it. Agility versus agile.
Ben?
I love this one.
Always put me on the spot. So yeah, at least for me, it's harkening back to the original parts of our conversation. Um, to me, Agile still kind of represents that key of communication. Agility is kind of I see it used a lot more in organizations where they are kind of focusing on the concepts of Agile and kind of taking things for their own use and mixing and matching and things like that. You'll hear Scrumban or Water Agile. I don't know. I just made that up. There's just all types of different processes that kind of flow where people are able um, to promote Agile through agility. So I've seen definitely within organizations in recent times, kind of more of that approach of mixing and matching, which makes the most sense. Like the places I've worked at most recently have been promoting and using that versus the kind of wider agile world, which is more focused again back on that consulting, leveraging, scaling agile framework and stuff like that. So I feel like at least the word agility has come to represent more of the combination of those different processes. Over to you, Matt.
Yeah, I think
And
Ben.
and sorry, but
Yeah.
and we'd like to conclude this slide also with a slight call to action. Like if you can start to brainstorm of a call to action so that as we leave today, it's like if I'm stuck in this, like Agile doesn't work so well, there's something to it. Is there a call to action also?
Yeah.
I'm just
I,
making it a challenge.
I think Ben and I are pretty aligned on what these mean. Like agility is it's our ability of our teams, our organization, our company, our communities to respond to change. Like it's like this quality of responding to change and in back to I think in the comments we were talking about, you know, that responsiveness to change is directed at providing customer value and or stakeholder value because you could also be within a company and like your customer could be internal, right? So that hyper focus on that, and it's like very fast alignment or the ability to break down silos, break down walls, be able to assemble ourselves in whatever those kinds of ways to deliver value. Like, because why do you want to change? What's the change you're responding to? You're responding to change of delivering increased value. And waste just gets in your way. So eliminate waste, but really it's the focus is value. Agile to me is kind of like, okay, cool. You're in order to do that, you need to figure out how you're going to be in a state where you can do that. And that's where a lot of these, I almost always say agile and lean now, because agile means lean to me and lean means agile, but those words are overloaded with what they mean to people. And so to use the Amazon terminology, it's like, it's what are the mechanisms? Like, what are the things you could say process, but mechanism to me is a better word because it's like mechanism has a very specific like outcome it wants to do. Like, oh, we're going to have small teams. Why are we going to have small teams? Because then it allows people to communicate more effectively. Oh, we're going to have like iterations because we want to do this, or we're going to be iterationless because we want to do this, right? So there's this whole breadth of mechanisms that fall under agile and lean to me. But the purpose is not those mechanisms. The purpose is agility to deliver value to customers. And my guidance to people would be to, I think, well, I shouldn't say this. And I know Ian is here from Ian and I shared some time at Motive together. And I always say like I invented Scrum at Motive. And it was like I was the 10th dev manager of this project. And that everybody said was never going to ship. It was 3 years. And And I went in there and like, I just said, maybe we should just start having monthly increments and let's go figure out what that will be. What's the highest value thing? And I called them these Infocom games, Zork, Planetfall, Station Fall, those kinds of things. And I put them up on the wall. Ian might have seen it at the time. Like, and I said, this is what's going to be done. And then we started with build verification tests. We just started doing things. So there's a point to the story here. I had never heard of, I didn't invent Scrum. I had not heard of Scrum at this point. This was like 2005. Like it existed. It predated me of not knowing. It was like, my guidance is trust yourself. Like in general, like if you put a bunch of people together that are aligned on delivering customer value, you're probably right. So like it's like there's these massive bodies of knowledge that you can learn from, and they're great. But most of them are based on empiricism. Like, and it's like empirical process control. I do an experiment, I learn from it, and then hypothesis, experiment, data, plan, do, checked out, plan, do, checked, act, OODA loops, all these kinds of things. So generally trust yourself, and then art of the possible, which is like that means two things. It means, hey, don't, dead scrum master is not good to anybody, right? Like, or whatever you want to call yourself, like a change leader. But what is possible that people don't think is possible, right? Like you have to like go from like do the impossible and then do the practical and figure out. But the final thing that I'll say, and this is another nod to finally to Amazon, if you ever type in a browser relentless.com, it'll be surprised of where it goes, because that was the original name of Amazon, and they talked about relentless improvement. And a lot of Kaizen, if you remember Lexus back in the day, was the relentless pursuit of perfection. And that really is that same kind of like CMMI level 5, right? It's like all these things are like, let's be engineers and scientists and just keep getting better. Let's start with something that works. Let's learn from it, and let's just keep getting better.
Yes, yes, continuous improvement, Kaizen. And isn't it interesting that all these cool philosophies originate from Japanese name? Isn't that interesting?
Well,
Kaizen, Kanban, you could go on and
because
on.
Deming went over and then was really pissed off because the U.S. audio industry wouldn't listen to him. And if you ever watch his videos, like how anyway, he taught them and they killed us. So
if things don't work for you, just move to Japan or something. No, we have a hand up. Suruchi, we'll take a question from you and then wrap up and stuff.
Not
Yes.
not a question. Just wanted to align or say add one quick thought on
Yes.
agility versus agile. That is really beautiful topic. So I'm thinking of agility as a goal and agile as one of the means to achieve it. Agility is about thriving in world of constant change, and agile is a proven way to practice and scale that adaptability. So that was really a beautiful subtopic. So just thought of sharing some thoughts.
Yes, no, and thank you for the feedback, right? I think we're all there in alignment that it's just a journey that continuously is there, right? The world is changing faster than it ever has, right? So we just have to continuously change and add value to our customers or a stakeholder of some sort. And I think that is where our big frontier as an Agile Austin organization, we challenge ourselves, the board, the volunteers challenge ourselves. How can we continue to add value to our membership and our community, right? We have SIGs, like 5 to 10 SIGs every month. Hundreds of people join in and enjoy this free content and topics that we talk about. And then we meet up once a quarter. We have a conference, but things are not the same now as they were in 2015, where Agile was the shiniest, newest thing on the market. People could go to their bosses and say, I want to go to an Agile conference. It's going to cost $2,000. No problem. Here's a check, right? Nowadays, it's AI and cybersecurity that might like get those kind of dollars at a conference. But we have adapted. We still have a conference that brings hundreds of people together, smaller scale than before. We still break even or make a profit. And it's testimony to you have to evolve, adapt, and continuously add value. That's just like, and it's so awesome to to live in that kind of a mindset. Ben, did we give you a chance to share a call to action? Or you're good?
I'm good on the call to action, I think, unless Matt has something.
No, I
No,
put my,
Matt has said his own
I said my
already.
own.
Okay. Yeah, look at how Ben even pivots when it's like.
No, yeah, I'm a little too negative to have a call to action. So let's just
You're realistic, Ben, not negative. You're
I have really,
realistic.
so I'm going to take Ben's because Ben brings up a really good point.
There you go.
Seek people whose, I'm going to just lay it all on the Amazon today. Like leaders seek to confirm their beliefs. Find people who disagree with you. And I really like, and Ben and I have known each other for a long time, and Max, and like Ben and I like have different perspectives. Max and Ben, like if you find people with different, and this is like we can get into a whole other topic of like diversity, like and how the different perspectives come together. Like there's some challenges to DEI kind of maybe, but like really, but if you get people that are like in my conversation, like somebody who's a young woman who's like sort of like speaking truth to power kind of thing, like that's good stuff. Find those things where people can do that. And because you're not always right. I'm not always right. And the more years you have on this planet, the more you probably realize how right you're not and you haven't been, especially when you insist that you are. So finding people that are not like you is super powerful for learning and growth and being effective and influencing.
Yes. And Matt, I think that's a beautiful thing to conclude with. And as Ned said, amen, Matt, because that will not only help our agile community and agility, that could really help the world out in present global political scenarios. Like, seek out people that don't exactly think like you. Okay. It's not even about look like you, think like you.
Right.
And try to understand where they're coming from. I do that all the time. I mean, they're always wrong and I'm right, but I try at least. I'm joking. I'm joking. I think it's just great because then you challenge each other. You learn where people are coming from and you grow from that. Imagine if more of our corporate culture, environment, teams, everything is more dynamic in that way. It would be the pinnacle, right, of it all. Okay, folks. Oh, look at that. Our next slide is the last slide. And it's 12:59. Austin said.
Unbelievable.
And
15
what is the one phrase that has been the key mission statement of this SIG for 15 years? Can anybody say it?
We start on time, we end on time.
I was gonna say we sometimes start on time. And
Whatever, Ben. We always start on time, Ben. Whatever. Okay. We start on time, we end on time, and everything else is relative. Folks, can we have a round of applause for our panel speakers? Yay! Or a thumbs up or whatever. Thank you, Ben and Matt, for joining us on our 15th anniversary. I'll be posting the recording and the picture on Meetup. And folks, happy holidays. Enjoy your time off with family and friends. And we'll see you in 2025. All right? We'll see you in 2025.
Thanks.
Bye, all.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good seeing you, Ned. Good seeing you, Ned.
It's great to see you, Matt. It's been a while.
Oh my God, Ned,
Is it
it's
cold?
so good to
Is
see
it
you.
cold, Ned, over there? Is
So-
it cold?
It's nice to have both presidents for life on the same call.
I forgot about that name. Oh my gosh.
Well,